time it is. Disclaimer, I am not an attorney, nor do I offer or give legal advice. So please understand that all information that we talk about in any of my webinars are strictly information and educational purposes. And most of it is just personal experiences with things anyway. So please understand this is not legal advice. And may you be blessed on your journey to find your power within these laws. Peace and blessings. Greetings. Back again for another quick video. Today we're going to touch on meeting of the minds. I mentioned that in my past video, and I had some people hitting me up wanting a little bit better breakdown and understanding of that. So here we are today. We're on Investopedia, and we're going to look into what is meeting of the minds. Now, the term meeting of the mind refers to an understanding or mutual agreement between two or more parties and their understanding of that agreement. In legal terms, the phrase denotes the essential element in validation of a contract. Okay, so when we are addressing these corporate fictions and they're stating that there's a contract form, this is the basis that we need to be paying attention to. Was there a meeting of the minds on a contract? Before we start arguing terms and conditions of contracts, we need to determine that a contract actually exists. Because if it didn't exist, we don't need to argue terms and conditions of it. Because if we're going to argue terms and conditions of a contract that doesn't exist, we actually giving the contract validation. All right. So a meeting of the mind occurs when both parties actually assent to a contract's terms. It may also highlight the time of a mutual agreement, although the acts of this agreement need not occur simultaneously. A subjective meeting of the minds was traditionally required when it came to the assent of contract theory. But modern law dictates that a meeting of the minds must be objective. All right, now let's take a second and click on that contract theory. Now it takes us to what is contract theory. Contract theory is the study of how people and organizations construct and develop legal agreements. It analyzes how parties with conflicting interests build formal and informal contracts, even tenancy. Contract theory draws upon principles of financial and economic behavior, as different parties have different incentives to perform or not perform particular actions. It is also useful for understanding forward contracts and other legal contracts and their provisions. It also includes an understanding of letters of intent and memorandums of understanding. Now let's look at forward contracts for a second. Okay, forward contracts. A forward contract is a customized contract between two parties to buy or sell an asset at a specified price on a future date. A forward contract can be used for hedging or speculation, although its non-standardized nature makes it particularly apt for hedging. Okay, so that's a little understanding on what contract theory is. All right, now we're going to go ahead and back up to meeting of the minds. Now let's look at the key takeaways of this meeting of the minds. Why is it so essential to a contract? The phrase meeting of the minds refers to the comprehension and mutual agreement of all obligations within a contract. So when we think of comprehension, does it make you think of the age of being able to contract, being of sound mind? So when we're dealing with corporations, do they have sound mind? A meeting of the minds is a critical element of a contract associated with acceptance and acknowledgement. So do our contracts we have with these fictitious entities, does it show acceptance or any type of acknowledgement from them? It can be difficult to challenge a contract after a meeting of the minds occurs and is established. So if meeting of the minds never occurs and is never established, you have no contract. If contract issues, challenges, or court actions arise, it can be left up to the court to interpret the elements and language of a contract and its intentions. Now, that's if it exists. But if it doesn't exist, there's nothing to challenge, so they really don't have jurisdiction. Ensure you negotiate the terms of your contract and consult a professional before you sign anything. They always tell us, right? But we're not reading these contracts, and this is how they're getting us. They're not even contracts. Understanding meaning of the minds. Drafting and creating a legally binding contract can take time. As such, a contract requires several key elements. For a contract to become legally binding, a meeting of the minds must occur between the parties named in the contract. Once again, look at our documents. The party named in there. Do you see a meeting of the minds? Is there any proof that that person was there and consented to that? The phrase meeting of the minds denotes the time at which both parties provide mutual comprehension and acceptance to the terms. This means that both parties understand and accept the terms, obligations, and rights that come with entering the agreement. Mutual acceptance is usually consummated with what? Signatures of agreement from both parties. Do you have that on your documents? If you don't have that on your documents, do you have a contract? Are you obligated to fulfill those terms? Did you agree to? Because it looks like you might have been the only one agreed to it. A meeting of the minds is synonymous with mutual agreement, mutual assent, and consensus ad endum. This is a Latin phrase that means all of the parties involved in a legal contract agree to its terms and conditions. As such, a meeting of the minds is the time at which all parties acknowledge that they fully understand and agree to all the terms of the contracts. Now, we're going into elements of a contract. There are several elements associated with creating a legally binding contract that can be upheld in courts. The parties who sign a contract may or may not be involved in the actual creation of the contract. Both parties often negotiate the contract terms until they can agree to all the provisions. Now, did that go with your mortgage situation? Did y'all go back and forth, or it was just take it or leave it offer on your part? Or on their part? Which one was it? Who was making the offer? In all contracts, there is an offer or what? And an offer E. In many cases, an offer or may have a standard contract that is not necessarily negotiable. In all cases, there is a mutuality of obligation. So it's not one-sided. This means both parties have an obligation to one another. Contracts also require capacity, which is an element stating that the parties involved are of adequate mental capacity to understand and agree on the terms. Does a corporation have adequate mental capacity to understand and agree of the terms? Is there any evidence of that on your document? A meeting of the minds is a part of the element of acceptance, y'all. Acceptance. acceptance is usually acknowledged and denoted by a signature. As such, contracts also usually required to be detailed and signed in writing. So now let's go back to my other video, go accept your property. Do you see why I was instructing everybody to go accept these properties first before you want to challenge these people? Because you don't want to be playing with unclean hands. See, these people are playing with unclean hands. We just don't know what's going on, so they're winning. Contracts become active once they are signed, y'all. This leads to the element of fulfillment and delivery on the contract's terms. After a contract has been signed, both parties are obligated to fulfill their obligation and deliver what is required as detailed in the contract. Okay? Now, let's just take a minute and just ponder over this. I'm not even going to keep reading because I think I've read enough right now just to get y'all a basic understanding, or at least to jog your brain, make you start looking at things differently. All right? So with that being said, we're going to end this video. Like I said, it's going to be real short, real brief, straight to the point. And hopefully this information is steady building upon building and building upon everything that I've been giving y'all. All the information is here. You just have to take action and do something with it. Peace and prosperity.